what are the consequences of working out of compliance? NTCs, violation, loss of license, fines, jail time?
We ended up in fines totaling over $50 million.
Wow.
Whoa, $50 million.
That's a crazy number. It's a big
That's
number.
a huge
Matter
number.
of fact,
Wow.
that shipping line no longer visits our port anymore.
Wow. Did anybody go to jail? Welcome to EnviroVibes Podcast, a podcast where the vibes are high and the environmental impact is low. I'm your host, Samantha, and I have my co-host, Gus, here with me today. And today's guest is someone very important for our industry with over 40 years experience in working with the South Coast Air Quality Management District as a head inspector for the agency, specializing in the Toxic Waste Unit and a member of the Hazardous Materials and Emergency Response Division. On his free time, he enjoys tutoring biology and chemistry to middle and high school students. Please welcome Inspector Michael Haynes. Woo!
Thank you very much. Thank you very much,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me the opportunity to come and say some good words to you regarding our agency as well as some of our rules and regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. It's an honor to have you here, and me working 35 years in the industry and be able to share our podcast and the purpose to educate the audience in our industry is so important about asbestos and demolition. Yeah. They need to learn a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can today, but I do want to stress to everyone, always try to sign up and attend that Rule 1403 class that we have. It is very beneficial, as well as it will share not only rule information, but it will also share rule interpretation. And that's very important for people in the field.
Great. Thank you for that.
And you're the master trainer for Rule 1403, right? That's what I hear.
Some people call me the master trainer. Yes, I am the lead instructor for Rule 1403. I've been instructing that class for approximately 25 years.
Wow.
By myself.
Amazing.
At that point. Yeah.
I would say you're one of the pioneers in for Rule 1403.
Yeah, you can say I was a pioneer. Someone taught me, but the key thing that they stressed to me was the importance of talking and meeting with the contractors, the consultants, because you guys are really the lightning bolt for 1403. You are definitely the recipient of some of the information that we discuss all the time, as well as share in the rule.
Awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk about that importance of Rule 1403. How does it apply to GCs, demo contractors, property managers, and all that?
Well, everyone that you just named off are what we would consider liable parties. Yeah. That means it affects everyone on the site, starting with the property owner. If the property owner hires a GC, general contractor, GC then hires a sub, which could be an abatement contractor. All of these construction companies are online, meaning that they are liable parties, and they must follow Rule 1403. And also remember, in our basin, if it's a commercial project, we're doing 2 inspections. We're doing one for AQMD and one for the Environmental Protection Agency, Region 9. So we do enforce federal standards.
And does everybody know about this rule? Like all these parties, like the property managers, do they all know?
I would say at this point in time, since the rule's been on the books since the 80s, I would say if you came to me or my agency and said you did not know, we would probably doubt that statement, because everyone is aware of asbestos at this time. Contractors, especially in the South Coast Air Quality Management District Basin, have been definitely taught about asbestos. If you have a state license, either with Cal OSHA or in this case with the Contractor License Board, you already know about the asbestos rules and regs. Yeah. So is 1403 important? Yes, because the main job of the rule is to limit and reduce the exposure to asbestos fibers.
Yeah.
And remember, mesothelioma and some of the asbestos diseases are alive and well in our United States, for sure.
For sure.
And, I want to add something as a not general contractor, but an abatement contractor in demolition. When we went to do the test to get the license in California, it gives us an open book for asbestos, and they show us the requirements. Every contractor even plumbing, electrician, or any general contractor should know the importance of follow the protocols and laws and regulations about asbestos and demolition. Right. So one thing that I always stress and I always request to our clients is provide a third-party environmental consultant survey report. Don't collect samples yourself. Don't send a plumber, electrician, or your superintendent to collect samples. They're not following the protocols. How important, Mike, is to get a third-party environmental consultant? I know it's a requirement. Can you give us a few key points?
Both rules, either 40 CFR or EPA's rule or AQMD's rule, as well as Cal OSHA's rule, require asbestos surveys first, foremost, and prior to any construction activity. That means cutting in the wall. That means never really legitimately disturbing any construction material. It is required by law to have an asbestos survey. And it should, and I need to make note, it says a thorough asbestos survey. So that means when you are hiring the consultant, if you are eligible to be one of the parties that hire the asbestos consultant, always give that consultant a copy of Rule 1403. And if you have the survey checklist, give that, and that should be part of your contract as well as your invoice. So make sure that the survey that is being prepared is a thorough one. And remember, there's two types of surveys. There is one for demolition, what we call comprehensive, and then there's one for renovation that we call limited. Either or would be a requirement of the rule. And if I'm an abatement company, soon as I get the survey, I would interview the consultant that did the work. Meaning whoever came out and pulled the samples, you need to sit down, either Zoom it with them or FaceTime them or just call them on the phone and go from page 1 to page 5 or page 25 of that report outlining what was ACM.
Oh, okay.
What was ACM? Because whether or not you are hired to remove it or not, you still need to know where the asbestos is located in the structure.
Whether it's 1 page or 25 pages.
And again, in certain situations, remember, procedure 5s are dictated when you have 1% asbestos or greater and you disturb it. And even if we did come in and it came back less than 1/10 of 1%, it still would be a procedure 5.
Yeah.
So again, to prevent all that drama regarding procedure 5s and cleanups, do it right. Have the asbestos survey done prior to the start of the work. That's the best way to keep AQMD and EPA out of your pocketbooks. Yeah. That's for sure.
And that's something that we stress here too.
Yeah.
So
we always require.
Yeah.
You know, if we don't have a survey, we're not even bidding the job. Simple. Correct. Because we don't know what we're going against. It's not just a demolition. Right. It's regular. Yeah. Right. Any demolition in the state of California, I mean, and the regulated South Coast AQMD here in APCD, but we're talking about South Coast AQMD today, is that before you remove and demo or renovate any building, you must have the third-party environmental consultant survey report. Right. And one thing that I had a question regarding square footage. So, you know, I would say 50-50, the consultants don't put the amounts, or some they just guesstimate. There's a handful of really great companies that they take the time to measure and put the exact square footage. So, Mr. Haynes, as a protocol for third-party environmental consultants to perform the survey, that's requirement for them to include the square footage.
Definitely, there's a requirement in the rule that requires them to do the thorough survey. But in doing the thorough survey, they must identify the square footage, the quantity, and need be, the percent asbestos, and the type of asbestos that they encountered in that building debris. So yes, what you are indicating is absolutely correct. You know, you must get these surveys done, and they must be able to walk anyone that reads it through how much asbestos was identified. That's normally greater than 1%. Because remember, AQMD and EPA is greater than 1%. Right. Cal OSHA is greater than 1/10 of 1%. So Cal OSHA is more stringent regarding asbestos fibers than AQMD and EPA. But to say all that is that Cal OSHA is also protecting the worker.
Yeah.
We protect everybody,
Yeah.
but Cal
The
OSHA
environment.
specifically is for worker protection. But yeah, the surveys are a must. If you're gonna bid on a project, and if you do not have the survey, I concur. Do not bid on that project, and definitely don't bid on it. And they tell you, well, we have one, and we'll send it to you. Well, how can you bid on it because you don't know what's asbestos and what's not, including the quantity?
Okay, so what are the consequences of working out of compliance? NTCs, violation, loss of license, fines, jail time?
All the above.
Okay.
Normally, we would start. Give you an example. We receive a complaint filed by either an anonymous party or filed by your next door neighbor or filed by a contractor. Once the complaint has been received, it is then assigned to an active compliance unit. In this case, a compliance officer, an inspector will show up at the site and begin an inspection and an investigation. We call it a complaint investigation. NTCs can be issued. NTCs, notice to comply, is what we call NTCs, can be issued for records, and a notice to comply can be issued to close the case out. But normally, notice to complies are issued, that gets the records in. Remember, the records to us is evidence also against you. So if you send AQMD any information associated with the notice to comply, make sure that information is true.
Yeah.
Please, because you do not know what the agency already has. We're not going to
They can
divulge that to you.
cross-reference.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and remember, the complainant normally will send us photos, will send us emails that you sent them,
Wow.
will send us assortment of records. And sometimes the complainant is actually a worker that works with you.
Wow.
By law, remember, these complainants are protected under the Whistleblowers Act of the United States government. So we cannot divulge who they are,
Who it is, yeah.
or what they've told us.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, NTCs then can turn into notice of violations. Notice of violations can be handled either civilly or criminally. And you're looking at fines that could exceed $25,000 per day per count.
Wow.
And yes, of course, if it goes criminal and you are deemed in violation, you will then be charged as a criminal.
Wow.
That means you will be a felon. And we
That's
would
scary.
then request that all your certifications be revoked. If you're a abatement company, then we would definitely request that DOSH revoke your DOSH registration.
And
this
they can no longer.
This is serious, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
that's
serious
really
thing.
serious.
Remember, this rule is designed to protect the public from a known carcinogen. So we're
Yeah.
not guessing
No.
that exposure to these fibers doesn't cause cancer.
It does.
Yes, we've seen it over and over and over.
Yeah.
If you've been in the business over 30 years and you have not come down with cancer, that means your company, if you're a abatement company, that means you're doing it right.
Okay.
That means your men are wearing the proper respiratory protection. They're getting proper training, men and women, whoever's out at the site. So, yes, this thing could end up in court, civil or criminal. And yes, I've seen worst case where the contractor is jailed immediately.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Have you seen that before?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, many years, not Quality Environmental, I want to make that clear.
Right,
Working
but-
for other companies, no name. There was contractors that they started doing renovation and demolition. Next thing you know, Mr. Haynes shows up and it's like, okay, where is the survey report? You know, there was somebody that make a claim, and it happens that there's no survey. It's not asbestos. This building was built after 1985. They'll bring this story that is not true.
Oh, wow.
You know, don't listen to that. They said that asbestos was banned in the late 70s, early 80s. Can you describe that? I mean, I want to let the audience and the industry about this important
the industry
topic.
has been bamboozled on the term. The building is built,
Before.
after or before 1980. I'll give anyone $50 if they can open up Rule 1403 or 40 CFR and find any dates that says buildings are built prior to that are exempt. It doesn't exist. I know. I helped write the rule. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So we tried to ban it, meaning EPA. It was overturned. So you see now most companies complying, manufacturers complying because of liability issues, insurance. But for the most part, the rest of us, contractors or people that are in the industry, must comply. And that includes city governments. So let me throw this out. If you're getting a demo permit, meaning you're going to demolish the building down to the ground, that city is not supposed to issue you that demo permit unless you show them proof of an asbestos survey.
Right.
So some cities are being sued because of the fact they didn't or failed to ask that question.
They didn't do their due diligence.
And there is cities that they ignore or.
Oh, there's a few of them. I want to throw no names on on the system yet. Only because some of them are active investigations we have right now going on against certain cities.
That's one of the biggest problems I have with general contractors saying, I went and get my demolition permit, guys, so I don't need to provide with the survey report because we already had the demo permit. I said, that's not true. We need to be in compliance with South Coast AQMD, Rule 1403. We need to submit notification. And besides that, if we're going to demolish the building, we need to notify AQMD who did that abatement,
right?
And where's the survey and also the waste manifest. It's really important to have all the documentation in place. So, I'll walk away with that kind of type of client that it's not, they don't want to listen. So, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
It is the reality.
And I had another question. So what is an AQMD inspector looking for when they arrive at a job site? What are the items that need to be in place?
In general, AQMD inspectors are trying to confirm compliance with the rule.
Yeah.
So they're looking for everything.
Yeah.
But for an abatement company, I would say if you were to attend one of our classes, we give you what we call an asbestos inspection checklist. We also give you a survey inspection checklist. Let's go with the inspection checklist. On that checklist, we'll actually show and tell the contractors what the AQMD inspector is looking for. But for simplicity, number one, show me the asbestos survey. Upon arrival, after we do our introductions and after you tell me it's okay to inspect, and normally it's the supervisor that says, yes, come in. Well, remember, once they tell us to come in, you're granting us permission to inspect and sample and take photos. So remember, as an abatement company or a general contractor, once your, in this case, supervisor, who's normally the person we meet, says, yes, come on in, they're granting us permission to do all the above.
Right.
Excuse me. Now, what specific records? They're going to ask for the survey. Then they're going to ask for proof of the notification. Once they look at those documents, it may lead to more questions and more requests for records. Show me your sign-in sheet. Show me your training certs for the men normally that are working on site. I have seen women every now and then, but for the most part, it's been men actually doing the abatement as well as some demolition. Again, where are the records? Show us the records. Prior to that, I would consider be the pre-inspection meeting. Then the inspection would be visiting and walking the site. At the end of the inspection, we would then normally look at the bin that's containing bags or the area that they're putting the bags in. All these areas.
And you take pictures of all of that as well.
Photos. And again, if you have bags on site, we're going to ask your supervisor to open up a bag, show us a bag. And at that point, the inspector is looking for moisture. So if your bags are dry, you're in trouble. At minimum, you will get an NTC. Sometimes the inspector will be more confident on you and they will issue a violation notice.
Yeah, and that was my next question. What reasons will provoke an inspector to give an NTC? That's one of the things,
NTCs can be, as I said, NTCs can be issued for records. Normally they're issued for records. Or to stabilize an area or giving you direction. For example, we show up at a site, they do not have an asbestos survey. A notice of comply is issued and the wording it says prior to any with a capital A, more work, do the following. hire an asbestos consultant,
Okay.
stabilize the site. Because at that point in time, EPA requires us to treat the site as contaminated. I'll say that again. At that point in time, we're treating your site as a regulated asbestos landfill.
Wow.
Not a construction site, a landfill. Until the surveys and reports come back, that's how we treat it. And yeah, companies can get in a lot of trouble associated with that. Once that is, we pull samples. We order you to get samples. And at the end of maybe a month of investigation, we make a determination whether or not to file legal charges against you.
Yeah.
If you're unlucky and you get that, you're looking at probably another 3 to 4 months before you're contacted by an attorney, either with our agency or with the DA's office, or it could be a federal prosecutor.
Right. I remember you mentioned that when we previously spoke, that and what was it? Inspections can turn into investigations real quick, and you teach the inspectors as well, and you teach them very well because they go by the book, right?
That's correct.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
always by the book. Always by the book. And remember, we have, in my unit alone, we have 36 inspectors. So just because if you're doing work in certain geographical areas of our basin, say Orange County, you may see 5 to 6 of those inspectors. If you're doing work in LA County, you may see 10 of those inspectors.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is we have over 30 of them, and subsequently they're out there every single day.
Yeah.
And now remember, for example, I'm working tomorrow on a case, and I'm working Monday. Those days were off.
Wow.
So my
Saturday.
agency is sending me out tomorrow to investigate an abatement company that is allegedly storing waste inappropriately. Now, of course, these are unannounced audits. They don't know I'm coming.
Right.
And upon arrival, I show them my badge, introductions, and then I explain to them why I'm there.
Yeah.
And that I'm almost sure is probably going to end up at least with a notice to comply.
Right.
And it's sad that, as an abatement contractor and
Yeah.
other colleagues and other people in the industry, they know the rules and regulations and they're not obeying and they're not following the regulations.
Right.
So do the other contractors. It could be, restoration.
And you got to remember that for an abatement contractor, demo contractor, general contractor, you have multiple layers of management. And it depends on who I talk to. If I talk to the president, vice president, project manager, they may understand the rule real well, but does your site foreman and supervisor?
Yeah.
So if your site foreman and supervisor is not properly trained, you just have people out there rolling the dice.
Right.
And I've had to explain it to many presidents, vice presidents, project managers. Well, why are they getting a violation notice? And I have to explain to them that their supervisor allowed a violational act to occur.
It's a domino effect,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because remember, for you as an abatement company or a general contractor, you're representing the owner.
Yeah.
And remember, most of the owners have no clue about asbestos the way you and I know it.
Right.
They have no clue.
Yeah.
Now remember, AQMD mainly regulates asbestos in construction activities, but we also get involved with abrasive blasting of buildings. We also get involved with lead abatement, because sometimes to remove the lead, you got to cut into the wall. You got to cut into the wall to remove the lead, or in this case, the mold.
Right.
If you don't have an asbestos survey, you're in violation of 1403.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it could have the asbestos in there.
Yeah. I mean, remember, asbestos will trump mold, excuse the pun, will trump mold and lead every time.
Yeah.
So one thing that I always say, asbestos supersede lead and mold and demolition.
Correct. You
Yeah.
know, in other words, make sure you have the asbestos report. Make sure you vetted the asbestos report. That means not just the project manager. I'm saying the foreman should also have read the survey specifically. And as you know, in our industry, we do have a lot of people that English may not be their primary language, then we can always get those asbestos survey reports written in other languages also.
Really?
Yes, you just have to let the consultant know you want it in another language, and most of your computers will have
That's
a drop
crazy.
down
I didn't
menu
know
that
that.
you can
Did you
convert
know
the
that?
whole document into another language.
Did you know that?
Honestly, it's the first time I hear that.
So again,
That's crazy.
It's a request that you go directly to the consultant.
Yeah.
Not the property owner that hired you, not the GC that hires you.
Right.
And I'm speaking solely to abatement contractors.
Yes.
Correct.
You control the site.
Yeah.
Okay? Even if AQMD is on site, it's still your site.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay? Remember, you control the entire site. So if I'm speaking to abatement contractors, yes, your nickels and dimes are on the line every time we show up. But remember, even if you do have project oversight by a consultant, it's still your site.
Yes.
Okay? It's still your site.
Yeah.
Now, if there's any kickback or pushback by the consultant of what you're doing, have the consultant show you where in the book it says that.
Yeah.
But otherwise than that, it's your site. And therefore, you notified us. The consultant didn't. The demo contractor didn't. The owner didn't. The GC didn't notify us. The abatement contractor notified us, or the demo contractor, depends on which project you're dealing with. But just make sure, ultimately, you review the survey, and if the survey, if someone needs it in another language, contact that consultant that wrote it, tell them to highlight it, drop menu, put it in another language.
Wow.
That's all you need to do.
That's cool.
And I'm sure, we're in Southern California, so
Yeah, or you
a lot of
can
Hispanic
and then
people.
with AI right now,
I know.
you can just
ChatGPT.
yeah, you can just copy and paste the whole survey, put it in AI, and tell them you want to print it out in another language, whatever
Right.
language you want, and it will
Right.
print it out in that language.
Wow. Okay.
At least
That's
the key items that your supervisor and your estimator needs to know about.
Right.
And remember, your scope of work must match the asbestos survey.
Yeah.
Yes, always.
So if the consultant says it's only 20,000 square feet of acoustic ceiling at 5% chrysotile, and you bid on it, we're expecting to see that
That
same
it matches.
amount. The only way it doesn't match is if you're dealing with a Procedure 5. Remember, Procedure 5 is only going to address materials that's already been disturbed.
Right.
So we'd have to clean all that up. But if the building still has intact asbestos, then you and the owner have to work out you have to go back to the building and remove that other asbestos if the owner plans on disturbing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about what is the craziest violation that you've seen, obviously not giving names or anything, but what is the craziest violation that you've experienced or witnessed or been a part of?
Or the largest.
Oh man, I've been involved with some
Landfills.
crazy ones. I would have to say it was a complaint filed by a barge operator where they were claiming the barge that they were on in the LA harbor was being renovated, and that they were disturbing asbestos from the engine room and throwing it into the bay.
Oh.
Yeah. So we took a boat out to the barge.
You guys took a
climbed on-
boat? So you rode in a boat
Yes,
to get to
my
the...
agency hired
Wow.
a captain and took us
Okay.
out to the boat,
That's
which
cool.
was a really it was more or less like a freighter.
Right,
The complaint said a barge, but it was actually a freighter.
Okay.
And yes, they were actually removing asbestos from the engine boiler room, and they had debris all over the ship. And yes, upon arrival, we did see evidence that some material was sitting on top of the water.
Wow.
Wow.
And we got the initial calls from the longshoremen union, because some of the people on board were union,
Yeah.
and they reported it to their union rep, and their union rep ultimately contacted
So they were
us.
being exposed, essentially.
Yes, they were being exposed. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we later were subpoenaed to testify in court regarding the longshoremen workers suing
Right.
the freighting company, or in this case, the company that owns the vessel. And subsequently, we ended up in fines totaling over $50 million.
Wow.
Whoa, $50 million.
That's a crazy number. It's a big
That's
number.
a huge
Matter
number.
of fact,
Wow.
that shipping line no longer visits our port anymore.
Wow. Did anybody go to jail?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
yes.
Okay.
Serious.
It's serious
You know?
stuff. It's
But he's talking about 50
Well, remember,
million.
this,
Right.
we're dealing with a health issue.
right. A hazardous.
And a hazard. So
Yeah.
remember, you get pulled over by a police officer for speeding. The fine is associated with the degree
Right.
of the incident. You were speeding. Okay. Could you have injured folks? Yes, you could have. With asbestos, we know you've injured folks. Now, whether or not they will come down with asbestosis or mesothelioma, it's the luck of the draw.
Yeah.
They may not, but they still were exposed.
Right.
Like me, I have to get a chest X-ray every year.
Yeah. Because you're
My
in and
agency
around it.
requires us to get full physicals every year, and there has been over the years some inspectors later retire, and we hear they have cancer.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Because you're exposed. You're there, making
yeah.
sure
Because
that.
remember, the agency teaches us HAZWOPER, which
Yeah.
mainly I'm sure some of your workers have taken it, or some of you guys, and it teaches you how to, or HERA training teaches you how and when to don the respirator.
Yeah.
But no rule tells you when you have to. It suggests that you should wear it. So at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the inspector and the workers properly suiting up. Because if they don't, it's their lungs.
That's true.
It's
their
their
health.
lungs. Ooh.
And you never, and with asbestosis, we're not dealing like lead, where if I know you were exposed to lead debris, you will start having symptoms that we could visibly see.
Right. But
Mainly
asbestos-
mental issues you're going to start having, or mold. You can get allergies, unless it's Legionnaire mold, and you can die from Legionnaire and mold.
Yeah.
With asbestos, we have no clue.
How long does it take
It's the
for
silent,
you to
right?
see?
Silent cancer.
Oh, it's a silent
It's a
cancer.
silent-
So you
Yeah.
never see it until you.
Until you have it.
But it says that
Remember, it's
15 to
it's
45 years, right?
Yeah, 10 to 15 years
Wow.
is normally the resolute rate for it to sit and establish itself and begin having the tumors. Now, that's just lung cancer. If you're talking about mesothelioma, mesothelioma is the cancer of the mesolayer, which is a small lining around your lungs. We all have it, and it protects your lungs from your inside cavity.
Right.
So if you get cancer of the mesolayer, there is no radiation that's going to help you.
There's no
That's
cure.
why it's fatal.
Yeah.
Mesothelioma is fatal.
I want to emphasize something really important
Yeah.
that Michael pointed earlier. The training to our labor force, is so important. All our labor force who's working in the field, with the scraper and wearing the respirator and suit, is very important. That's I will say, besides the people in our office and the estimators and us as owners, it gives us an advantage. And myself, being in the industry for 35 years, I'm one of them. I understand the necessities and the training that is important to keep the people with the certification and the training to protect themselves first and the environment,
And sometimes companies like yours and other construction companies are going to have to force your workers to that training.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, sometimes you have to explain it to them as we are protecting you,
Yeah.
and sometimes we have to protect you from you.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
sometimes we have to, because no disrespect to the lady present, but some of us men tend to be cowboys, and we're gonna ride this together. In
Yeah.
other words, it's not manly to cry and crumble down. It's not a manly thing to do. But with this asbestos scenario, women don't have nothing to do with it. It is a known carcinogen, and it can catch up with you. And when it does, God forbid, but if it does, pretty much, you're looking at timelines, meaning how long you're going to be left.
How much longer
How
you
much
have
time
left
you
to
got
live.
left Just
Oof.
that simple, you know.
That's scary.
But most people don't even know where they got it from.
Right.
Correct.
That's why when I have a complainant and we know that they were in the room when the materials were exposed, and they say, well, what should I do? I say, well, you need to contact your primary. Let your primary doctor know that you believe you were exposed to asbestos fibers, and then follow their lead.
Yeah.
But it's nothing a whole lot we can do at this point.
No. It's a little too late.
You can
at
be
that
in a
point.
building that it's, you don't know it's asbestos fibers in the air, and you're
Right.
exposed.
Well, if you live close to freeways, you have a higher exposure rate than away from the freeway.
Yeah.
Remember, United States automobile companies banned asbestos in the brake pads, except some of the countries to the south of us, Mexico, some of the countries to the north of us, Canada, and then also heavy equipment such as longshoreman vehicles, or in this case, tractor trailers. They can use asbestos pads still in their brakes.
Still to
Where
this
regular
day.
cars, like our regular cars that we normally drive, those brake pads are free of asbestos.
Yeah.
Where the trucks could
Yeah.
use asbestos
Right.
containers.
And like you said, we have, Mexico and Canada. So, I mean, they
and
can
yeah,
always.
and they still use it.
Right.
Matter of fact, they
It's-
still mine it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, in Canada, there's a whole city by the name of Asbestos.
Yes.
No way.
The whole
Yeah,
name-
there is.
No.
Yes, I know that.
Yes,
Yes.
crazy.
Oh yeah, asbestos still
Canada got a city by the name of Asbestos.
asbestos still being manufactured in other countries.
And it's still
Yeah.
being used. I mean,
Can't believe it.
Yeah, don't believe the hype. I'm running into buildings that were built in 2023 that
Yeah.
have asbestos
That's
in it.
what, last year. And they still
Well,
have.
yeah, and they
Yes.
still have asbestos. Yeah, they putting
Oh.
it back into every time they do a re-roof, they can put it back in there.
Henry's-
Oh my
Master.
goodness. That's
Yeah.
insane
You know,
to me.
There's still amounts
that
of
may be
asbestos.
that may be job security for your company,
Yes.
Right.
but they are putting it back in, and there's no regulation saying you can't.
So we will never stop doing what we do then.
Oh well,
No,
In that case-
I think,
Back in the
I think
90s.
your company is here to stay because these people are creating more and more jobs for you.
Right. I'm sure it's
And,
a cheap material.
Yeah, there was a comment in the industry back in the 90s, like, oh, asbestos is gonna be run out in 10 years, and there's not gonna be no asbestos abatement. And one thing that in my experience for the last 35 years, in the late 80s and the 90s, instead of removing the asbestos, they encapsulate it with more sheets of drywall,
Right.
Oh
more
my
layers
goodness.
of paint,
You know,
and flooring too. We encountered 3 layers of flooring, sometimes even
Multiple
more.
layers, yeah.
Multiple.
Wow.
Because unlike cities and roofs, they normally limit you to 3.
Yeah.
3 layers.
Yeah.
Where floors, I've seen 6.
Wow. One of them, and as a business owner, is a privilege. A lot of business owners don't know that they own abatement companies.
90% of the inspectors don't see 80% of the abatement contractor's staff.
What are the highlights or great experiences that you've experienced with Quality Environmental and also with my dad, Gus? So you've known him for a long time
Well, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
and the pretty too.